You still buy chorizos on the shops? No, you're missing out. You see, I make my own chorizo. Butchers normally use cuts that they don't sell, bits and pieces. When you make your own, you are on total control. And the quality is just another level. And to be honest, there is a lot of pride when you're able to buy your own chorizo. Today, I'll show you how to make proper traditional Argentinian chorizos from scratch at home. Guys, seriously, this is one of the most delicious chorizos in the world. Let's get cooking. Hi, I'm Papa Mao. I'm here to inspire people to use healthier and long-lasting cookware as a way to care for their loved ones and for the environment. In my channel, I show how easy it is to cook with carbon steel, cast iron and stainless steel cookware. I share my own experience as an everyday dad cook and as an outdoor weekend warrior. Welcome. Step 1. Get everything ready. In this recipe, time is critical because you want to work with the meat as cold as possible. That's key for food safety and getting the right texture. So before you even touch a knife, make sure you've got the right amount of meat, fat, salts, and spices all ready to go. And don't forget the casings. Start by calculating your meat. A traditional Argentine chorizo mix is 50% lean beef, 25% pork back fat, and 25% lean pork. A fun fact, beef used to be the cheapest meat in Argentina some time ago, so it became the base for most sausages. That's why today our chorizo is so different and now famous around the world. Now, in this particular batch, I'm actually using venison instead of beef. And for the hunters out there, if you use 100% venison as your lean meat, that is skipping the pork entirely, these chorizos turn out absolutely amazing. It's a great way to honor the animal and put that wild flavor to good use. Now, depending where you live, getting pure back fat might be tricky. In Australia, I've had good luck finding it at Chinese butchers. Just make sure it's fresh, has no strong smell, and is a clean, shiny, white color, not yellow. If you can't find back fat, no worries. Just swap both the lean pork and the fat for pork belly, which is roughly 50-50 meat and fat. To make it easier, I've created a spreadsheet that calculates all your ingredients based on batch size. You'll find the link down on the description. All right, let's talk casings. The easiest way to start is to just ask your local butcher for whatever they use. That's totally fine for your first go, no stress. But once you move past the beginner stage, it's worth getting good quality casings. Trust me, they break less, they are easier to work with, and you can choose the exact caliber that suits your style. I'm using 44mm plus caliber hog casing, which is exactly what we used back in Argentina. That's big, juicy chorizo that screams homemade, not supermarket stuff. I get all my sausage and salami making gear from the Casing Boutique. That's an awesome Aussie online store. Check them out. This is not sponsored, I just love them. The great thing is that if you store your casings properly, they last a long time, and I'm talking like years. I just portion out what I need, rinse it well with cold water, then soak it in fresh water in the fridge for a couple of hours, or ideally overnight, so they rehydrate properly, and that's it. Easy peasy. Now, for the salts and spices, we will be using salt, curing salt number 1, sodium erythorbate, binding, I'm using corn flour here, pepper, cayenne pepper, or any other chili you may prefer, oregano, nutmeg, coriander seeds, water, and wine and garlic. Step 2. Prep the meat. Now that we've got everything ready for the chorizos, it's time to prep the meat. I like to cut everything into cubes. The smaller the pieces, the easier they'll go through the grinder, but also it takes more time. I usually aim for chunks about 2.5 centimeters, which is about an inch. With fat, it's even more important to go small. Big chunks of fat in a chorizo are not good. They don't mix well and can mess with the texture. My tip: pop the fat in the freezer for a couple of hours before cutting. Almost frozen fat is easier to slice and doesn't smear. Once I'm done cutting, I weigh the total amount of meat and fat. That way, I can calculate exactly how much wine and spices I need using my spreadsheet. Then, it's time to prep the wine and garlic mix. The traditional recipe calls for white wine, but honestly, I just use whatever good wine I have on hand. I crush a full head of garlic in a mortar and pestle, pour the wine over it, and then let it rest in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. That gives it time to infuse and mellow out. Step 3: salts and spices. Alright, now it's time to measure out your salts and spices. Sausage making is a precision game. You really need to weigh everything down to the gram, so a good scale is essential. I use a cheap little jewelry scale for small quantities like salts and additives, and a standard kitchen scale for the larger stuff like meat. The process is simple. Just plug your numbers into the spreadsheet, calculate exactly what you need, and mix everything together in a bowl. Now, two ingredients I want to mention again. They are optional if it is your first time, but it's worth considering later on. Cure number one is a critical ingredient for making proper sausages, proper chorizos, right? It's a preservative, but also enhances the color and the flavor. It is a big difference when you use it compared to when you're not. Some people prefer not to use it. That's, I suggest you do some research and make your own call. Next one from the drugstore, sodium erythorbate. I really don't know how to pronounce it in English, all right? This is an antioxidant. This is literally a synthetic form of vitamin C, and also very important to protect your product, right? And to enhance the color and flavor and texture of your chorizos, all right? I always use it as well. Next one is corn flour. This is a binding agent, right? It is critical for sausage making because it's going to help binding all those ingredients. Have you experienced when you're going to a barbecue, right? And those sausages that crumble, they disintegrate pretty much, right? Compared to the ones that you cut and they cut clean. When you cut them clean, then those sausages have a binding agent, all right? So you could use different products. Corn flour, it works really good. It's very neutral on flavor. It doesn't add any flavor, right? You could use normal flour as well, but some people are, gluten-free, so you need to be mindful of that, all right? Step 4, grinding and mixing. All right, time to grind that meat. I like to start with the fat first. I'm not a fan of sausages with big chunks of fat, so I run it first through a 10 millimeters plate and then again through a 5 millimeters plate. That gives me a finer grind that blends beautifully into the meat paste. A quick tip: grind the fat straight from the freezer, or at least when it's nearly frozen. It cuts cleaner and won't smear. Once the fat is ready, I move on to the proteins. I like to combine the beef, pork, and fat directly at the grinder, aiming for roughly a 1/3 ratio of each going in together. This way, the mix comes out already fairly uniform, which makes the final seasoning and mixing step much easier and more consistent. Alright, now we are ready to add the spices. I start by sprinkling the spice mix gradually while mixing the meat by hand, making sure everything blends as evenly as possible. Then I strain the garlic out of the wine, pour it in along with the water, and keep mixing thoroughly. This is where the real transformation begins. By applying mechanical force, mixing, pressing, and folding, we extract the myosin protein from the meat. That's what helps bind everything into a uniform sticky paste. As you mix, you will feel the texture change. The meat absorbs all those spices and liquids, becoming glossy and tacky. That's exactly what we're after. To test if it is ready, I grab a small ball of the paste and hang it from my hand. If you press a ball of this paste, it doesn't fall from the hand, right? That's how sticky it is. So we're good now.
Just make sure the mix isn't too dry. Depending on your batch, you may need to adjust with a little extra wine or water. That will make the filling process a lot easier later on.
You can really smell it. It's like, it brings me a lot of memories. The smell is just amazing.
Step 5. Filling the casings.
Ha! Happy times!
This is the final step of the sausage making process, and if you made it this far, congratulations! You're almost there. I'm using a basic unbranded sausage stuffer I bought online when I started making bigger batches. But if you're just starting out, don't stress. There are plenty of DIY or budget-friendly options out there and heaps of videos on YouTube to guide you. A few tips that really help. First, stretch and rinse your casings well before filling. I like to run fresh water through them straight from the tap. It gives them a final clean and helps them slide onto the stuffer easily. On the machine, use the largest stuffing cone that your casings can handle without overstretching. Too small and the filling process becomes frustrating and slow. Too big and your casings may break.
A couple of tips for the sausage filler, right? So the head, it has a piston and it goes with a silicone ring, all right? So I like to put a Ziploc bag just to keep everything clean, and then the ring goes on top of it, okay? And then what I do with the ring, I will spread a little bit of olive oil in the ring just to help with lubrication.
I like to tie my sausages, which is the traditional way in Argentina. Here in Australia, it's more common to just twist them, and that's totally fine, entirely up to you. For tying, I use cotton cord wrapped around half a clothespin. It works like a handle and makes the job a lot easier. When you start filling, make sure to let all the air out of the machine first. Once you see the meat coming through, you can close the casing and tie the first knot. Keep the casings well lubricated with water through the process. That's key. Then just go slow and steady. It might feel awkward at first, but like anything, this part gets easier with a bit of practice. Some people like to prick their sausages to release air. I don't usually do that at this stage. I prefer to keep the juices in while cooking for a more tender and juicy result. If needed, you can always prick them later on the grill to let excess fat out. When it comes to tying of each sausage, I just use a simple knot. It's an area I'm still improving. It definitely takes practice to do it quickly and cleanly. One last tip. Don't overfill your sausages. Keep them slightly loose. If the casing is too tight, it can split during handling or cooking, and that can be quite frustrating. And that's it. Our chorizos are ready. I'm going to leave them overnight in the fridge. That resting time allows the curing salt to do its job. They will turn beautifully pink and those flavors will soak in properly. By the morning, they will be perfect to vacuum seal and freeze, ready to wait patiently in the freezer until it's time to party.